Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm just waiting and see who turns up. We're a little bit of a delay on Facebook Live, so just let's see what who turns up, and then we'll get going. So just give it a few minutes, see what we can do. You're welcome to come on to Zoom, and it's worthwhile coming on to Zoom if you can. I'll just see if I can get you the. Yeah, let's just see if I can get this. I will put it in the comments, and it's worthwhile coming on to Zoom if you can. Just see if I can get you the. Okay. So in the comments, you'll find. In the comments, you'll definitely find the link to come on to Zoom. So I suggest you come on to Zoom. It's much more interactive. We can have a whole kind of workshop going here. If you can come on to Zoom, the link is in the comments on Facebook Live. If you're seeing me on Facebook Live, just go into the comments and press that link into Zoom, and hopefully we'll be able to get started. So, hi, Mary. I suggest you come into, I see that Mary's here, Belinda's here, but I really suggest that you come into Zoom. The better that you come into Zoom, we can have an interactive conversation, can play some games maybe, and have basically an interactive time. But if you prefer to stay on Facebook Live, then that's all right too. So I'm just going to wait and see if I get any people coming into Zoom. Again, Zoom is the ideal place to be for this. So I suggest that you come in. Today is Wednesday. Wednesday is the day that we do this Face COVID workshop in English. So we do the English versions on Monday and Wednesday, and we do the Hebrew versions on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Also, just as a little bit of an advert, we've got a whole virtual conference coming up starting tonight. And we have a lot of guests, leading psychologists, researchers, and authors in the psychological world will be coming on my show in the virtual conference. It's Corona Views. Corona Views will be live talks here on my Facebook Live. You're welcome to join. All you need to do is to come onto my Facebook Live at the correct time. Oh, wonderful. That Mitch.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Great to have you back. Great, Mitch. Okay, so you're the brave one. You're the brave one that's come on to Facebook. I'll come on to Zoom, which is great. We've got some people.
I've come on to Zoom. Just so you know, if there's a meeting number as opposed to just a link, I can get on my iPad, which is better. But this, I press the link, and I could only do that on my phone.
Right. Okay. So thanks for letting me know. I will certainly post the meeting number in the future.
Thank you very much.
And I'm just informing everybody, Oshrat, Ronen Goldberg, thank you for watching. Come on into Zoom if you can. Miri, also you can come in. I see that Belinda's come in. Fantastic. Open up the cameras. Let's have a look. And we can have a proper workshop going. Mitch has arrived and he's got his name in Zoom as well. Fantastic.
How about that?
How about that? So that's fantastic. This, I was just informing everybody, Mitch, that from tonight, if anyone's interested, and all day, every day next week, we'll be doing a my interview show. It's a virtual conference with some of the world's leading psychologists, researchers, and authors in psychology. We'll be coming on my show here on Facebook Live. So you'll have to come into my Facebook to see it.
I'm not quite sure I know how to do that, but
right. So it's another thing to learn during these interesting times.
Thank you.
And so everybody's welcome to come in. All you need to do is to be a friend of mine on Facebook, and you can get into my profile, and then you'll be able to see these interviews. The first one is tonight with Thomas Subo. He is one of the leading psychologists in acceptance and commitment therapy, and also in behavioral analysis. So very, very interesting fellow, good friend and colleague of mine. And I really suggest that if you've got an interest in human behavior, especially during these times, then you join me tonight at 7 p.m. UK time. So that's 1900 UK time. Darren Fields has arrived. Fantastic. If you could open up the camera.
Can I just ask, could I ask one question?
Go for it, Mitch.
Is there any way on an iPhone of getting gallery view?
Right. So I don't know about this, but what I've heard so far is that it's very difficult. So it would be great if you've got, you're not on your phone, so you've got gallery view at the moment, right?
No, I'm on my phone because I didn't have a meeting ID.
Right. So you are on your phone. It should be an open.
Do you have a meeting ID number I could write down or not?
What is that to come on your phone?
You know, that would allow me to come on my iPad and have gallery view for this meeting, but only if you've got
everybody,
an ID
at the moment, everybody's coming in without a meeting number.
They're coming on without a meeting number.
Yeah, everyone's coming on without a meeting number. So see if you can get on. So I'm just going to
I can't get gallery without a meeting number.
Oh, really? So hold on. Well, I'm not going to know if I'm going to be able to do it now. I'm going to ask Belinda if she could start a video. I'm going to ask Darren if come in, and if you can open up your cameras, and then we'll get going. So we're going to give it another minute or two, and then we're going to get started. So Shrat, Mary, come in. Have the courage to come in. What we're going to be talking about today is the Face COVID formula by Russ Harris, good friend and colleague of mine. And we're going to try and expand that. The last time we got up to engaging in what you're doing, and we're just going to have a quick kind of recap on that. And then we'll be moving in today into things like committed action. What does that mean? What kind of committed action can we do? Opening up to what? We'll see what opening up is, and how to connect to our values. Identifying resources, that's external resources and internal resources. And of course, the D in COVID is disinfect and distance, which is something we all need to come. So Shira Freeman has arrived on Facebook Live. I again invite everybody that's watching on Facebook Live at the moment to go into the comments and to see the link for Zoom.
Thanks,
and come into Zoom and join us. And we can have a wonderful interactive workshop. Okay, so Face COVID is the acronym FACE COVID, and the F is for focus on what is in your control. So what is it that we have in our control? Well, first of all, what is not in our control, right? Things that are not in our control, which is usually what's causing most of our anxiety, most of our suffering at the moment, is things that are not in our control. So we're worried about the virus. Sorry, that's not in our control. We're worried about whether we'll be infected or not infected. Not a lot in our control. Of course, there are some things which regarding our actions, but whether at the end of the day we get infected or not infected, that is not in our control. We can try some prevention techniques, but what I'm talking about is the choice of actually being infected or not being infected is not in our control. We sometimes worry about, quite rightly too, the rest of our family and our friends and the situation, but is that what we're worrying about in our control? It's absolutely not in our control. The economic situation, is it in our control right now? No, it's not in our control right now. Is it in our control right now to know what the government is going to do? Well, unless you're prime minister or high up in the government, the chances are you do not have control in that. So now is the meeting for everybody in the world, but this is the meeting just being asked a question on Facebook. Is this is the meeting in the English language for anybody who wants to join from anywhere in the world. So you're welcome to join no matter where you're coming in from. This is in the English language. So we're talking about what's in our control and what's not. And generally speaking, all of these things I've just mentioned are not in our control. But yet these are the things that, if you look at it, is causing most of our suffering and our pain and our anxiety at the moment, including me. I have an elderly mother that I can't get to see. I've got children and grandchildren that are not with me at the moment. I'm in my own, I'm totally isolated. And yeah, my mind is constantly throwing things up to me about how they are. And of course, I can talk to them with using technology, which is a wonderful thing, just like I'm talking to you. But at the end of the day, my mind is throwing up all sorts of interesting thoughts about what can and cannot happen. And with myself, am I going to be infected or not? But let's put these things to the side just now. What is in our control? If we kind of choose what's in our control, then our body will settle down, our brain will settle down, and there might be less of this emergency reaction inside our bodies, which is churning out all sorts of stress and distress hormones. And we can feel that in our body sometimes, and we certainly feel it in our feelings, in our emotions, and in our thoughts. So what is in our control? Well, the easiest thing that's in our control, the thing that we can take everywhere, is by taking, first of all, deep breaths. Now, I've learned from Professor Yori Gidron on vagal breathing, and it's a wonderful way to settle down our emergency fight and flight freeze system. It's also backed up by the polyvagal theory. And I suggest that we try it now. And basically, I'm going to use hand signals like this so that I can also do the breathing with you. So if I bring my hand up like this will be breathing in through my nose. I'll hold it for a couple of seconds in my lungs. And when I come down the way, that will be me breathing out through my mouth with pursed lips. Hold on a second, I'm going to mute you all so we don't have background. Yeah. When I come down the way, that's me breathing out through my mouth with pursed lips, a little bit of pressure to cause a little bit of back pressure to my throat. And this will activate that vagal nerve. So let's try it together. We're going to do 4 times. So let's try it together. I put my hand in my tummy so that I can feel that my abdomen is coming out when I'm breathing in. Okay. If anybody has any questions at all, you can unmute yourself, ask a question. You can, let's make this interactive. I don't want it to be always a full frontal lecture. The idea is this is a workshop, so you can ask questions, you can participate. All I ask is that you are muted until you want to ask a question. Then when you mute, when you want to ask something, you can unmute. You can also ask a question on Facebook Live, although I'll tend to look at that a little bit less frequently. But if you want to really be interactive, come on to Zoom, open up your cameras if you can. It'd be great if you can open up your cameras so I can see who I'm talking to. And you're welcome to ask at any time. So we're breathing in, using our abdomens when we're breathing in through our nose. Just hold that in your lungs and out through your mouth. We're basically breathing in at the count of 3. We're holding to the count of 2. And we're coming out at the count of 5. And when you're coming out, even if you make a little noise like this, for the count of 5. So breathing in really deep. Hold that and out. Once again. Hold and out. and breathing out. Final time, breathing in, hold, and out. Okay, just let that marinate round and take its effect. All right, if you've got any feedback on how that was, Mitch, how was that for you?
Am I mute? Am I all right?
No, you can. Yeah, you can.
Okay. Yeah, I find the body slowed down slightly as a result of all of that.
Right, wonderful. So just to clarify, the idea of it is not a relaxation technique. That's not the actual aim of that exercise. The aim of this exercise is to actually get in touch with what is in my control. But there is sometimes even more often than most, but it doesn't always happen, that I have a relaxation reflex out of that, and it can sometimes be quite pleasant. But that is not the aim. The aim is to get in touch with what is in my control, and we have our breathing with us all times. So we can do this exercise at any time, not just now with me. So just let me check if there's any questions on here. Okay, so another thing that's in our control is moving our body. So you can wiggle your fingers, move your, hi Edna, move your arms, move your head, move your body, okay? This signals to your brain that you're in control, okay? If you join me in the mornings, we do a whole routine with this, and it's a lot of fun. That's 11 a.m. every day, UK time. So acknowledging your thoughts and feelings. We have a flow of thoughts coming into our head all the time. And we can have sensations and feelings in our body. And a lot of the time these days, we can have some distressing thoughts. And they're coming into our body in our brain at all time. And that's perfectly natural. And that's something we need to understand. These are natural responses. We can choose how to respond to that, but we do not have control over these thoughts coming in and our emotional changes, and sometimes even the sensations in our body. These are things that are out of control, but what we can do is respond to that. That is in our control. And one way that I've been teaching you is the leaves on the stream. Did you do that, Mitch, the leaves on the stream?
I did do that, yes.
Wonderful. And how was that for you?
I think it had like a moderate effect on me. I guess the exercise distracted me from the difficult thoughts that were more prominent in my mind beforehand. They didn't take them away. And when the exercise was left, after the exercise, I wasn't sure I was in a net benefit position, but the fact of the journey it was on the positive side to do it, if that makes sense.
Right, wonderful. Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And the thing is this, you hit on all the major points. First of all, this exercise is not and will not be able to take your thoughts away, okay? We are going to have these distressing thoughts. It's natural that our brain is pulling them up for us. Because we're in a kind of a distressing time, and that's what our brain does. It looks after us. It gives us thoughts. Hey, what's going on? But
may I make a comment?
Yeah, you can.
I think a lot of us are used to finding solutions to difficult problems that we face, and the realization that it's not in our gift to find solutions is a source of frustration.
Wonderful. So we have a problem-solving mind. It's probably one of the best problem-solving instruments in the whole world. That's humans have populated and dominated the world since they were on the planet. And one of the reasons is because we have an amazing problem-solving. Unfortunately, that great skill of problem-solving doesn't work inside our bodies. our minds. It works outside. Everything you look around you, you'll see everything was created, first of all, in somebody's mind. Your chairs, screens, your clothes, everything was created, first of all, in somebody's imagination, in somebody's mind. And then it was created again once it was materialized into the physical space. So we had amazing, amazing problem solvers. But inside, under our skin, those skills do not work. So you quite rightly pointed out, Mitch, that it will not take these thoughts away because we can't take our thoughts away. We have no control over that. If our brain wants to throw up a thought to us because of the dangerous or pleasant context that we're in, whatever context we're in, our brain will throw up some thoughts here and there. In fact, even if I'm in a really pleasant situation, there's a good chance that my brain will throw up something unpleasant at that time, kind of a bit of a party pooper, but that's what it does. So if I said to everybody here that was educated in an Anglo-Saxon way, Jack and Jill went up the, Mitch?
Hill.
Hill, of course. That's the thought that comes to your mind because that is what we were taught. That is how we learn. And so there are certain things. If I say to you black, what kind of comes into your head? Another color.
Are you asking me or somebody else?
Yeah, go for it, Mitch. Why not?
No, I don't want to monopolize.
No, it's okay. You're welcome.
White.
Yeah, that's what happens. If I say black, you say white. If I say up, you say down, because that is the way our brain works. So if we're in a happy situation, it might throw out an unpleasant thing. And sometimes when we're even in an unpleasant situation, it might throw up a thought that might be pleasant. And these things can happen at the same time, and we don't need to feel guilty about that. So we need to acknowledge that we have thoughts and feelings. We need to be willing enough to come in contact with them and not, as you said, Mitch, try to find solutions to distract yourself, try to find solutions to get away from this, try to find solutions to deal with those disturbing and distressing thoughts and feelings. Because what happens? They tend to get worse. They tend to become more often. They tend to become more powerful. So one of the things that we learn how to do that on here is to place those thoughts on a leaf as we watch the leaf go down the stream. What is that doing? Well, if I was to teach you, I don't know if you, Mitch, since you're here on Zoom, or anybody else on Facebook Live can answer me on the comments, but I don't know if you know how to keep kicky up on with a football. Do you know how to do that?
I'm not very good at it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So if I was to ask you, I want you to be able to keep the ball up 20 times. And I want you to do that tomorrow. Do you think you'd be able to do that?
No.
Right. Now, what would you need to do in order to be able to accomplish that at the end of the day?
Okay, I've had that sort of thing. We had an offsite once where we had to learn to juggle to prove the power of will over a sense of inability. And you had to keep a certain number of balls in the air for a certain period of time. And eventually everybody, and I was one of the last ones to achieve it, but everyone in the group managed to do that which they initially thought they couldn't do.
Okay, wonderful. And what was the process that you had to do in order to be able to do it though?
Practice.
Practice, exactly. So if we do leaves on the stream and we just do it once or twice, the chances are that we're going to be as good as keeping the ball up maybe once or twice. But if we want it to have an effect on us, it's something that we need to practice and practice regularly so our brain will kick in for us. So when we have these disturbing thoughts and these uncomfortable feelings, and we kind of bring up in our brain that we want to do the leaves on the stream exercise, it will already be well oiled in doing it, that it will have possibly even a longer effect. And what is the effect we're looking for? Because as I said, we're not taking the thoughts away. The effect is that it creates a distance. That I am not my thoughts, but my thoughts are something that I can observe. And if my thoughts are something that I can observe, then there's a distance between me and my thoughts. And it's that distance that will make the difference. Is that clear? If you're on Facebook Live, just say thumbs up, that's clear, or yes, it's clear. Just give me a comment. If you're on Zoom, you can just say to me, yeah, it's clear.
Yes, clear.
Okay, wonderful, Mitch. So, so that's regarding our thoughts and feelings, and I suggest to you that we practice this regularly. And then there'll be more exercises that we can bring in, but there's no point overloading with different exercises when they all kind of do the same trick. Okay, so is there somebody else just joined us on Zoom? If there is, just let me know who you are. I see there's somebody in the chat. Let me just see what that is. Okay, so Belinda is just saying to me that she can't join me by video, but that's fine if you're still here on without camera. Sometimes people can't come in with the camera. All right, wonderful. So let's move on. Good to see Steiner Ofra here as well. So coming back to your body, one thing that I mentioned the last time is that one thing, especially during these days, that's missing in our lives is human contact. Okay, so, and human contact is really, really important for us as people because it's something that helps soothe us. And we've found that even in the mother's womb, fetus will touch their face. And this is because that touching of the face is self-soothing. So these times we're not allowed to touch your face. So we're not even allowed to touch yourself, not allowed to touch anybody else. So we're having a certain crisis here regarding that human touch that we crave so much. So one of the things we can do is come back to our body and actually feel our own bodies. And the way we can do that is having kind of a self-hug. And one of the ways of doing that is putting one hand on your chest and one hand on your tummy. And if you just manage to sit there for a few minutes and notice what happens when you have this self-hug. Those of you on Facebook Live, try this. Try it and see what's happening. Try it, Mitch? Excellent. Just sit there for a few seconds, just experience it. Just experience what that is about. Just sit there. Sometimes it might be difficult for some of us just to sit there and do this, but this is what the learning process is all about. Getting in touch again with our bodies. Because all the worry and the anxiety is all when we're up in our heads. What we're doing now is coming out of our heads and coming into our body. And while we're doing that, we can even start to go back and acknowledge and notice what is happening inside of our bodies, what we're feeling, what sensations are we having as we give ourselves this hug. Great, Jane. Nice to see you back as well. You're welcome to come into Zoom if you wish. The link is in the comments. Okay, what was that like? Put in the comments what you feel that was like. If you had that experience, Mitch, you're, as usual, you can speak. So what is that experience like for you?
Well, I think there was some warmth that I noticed in the body.
Okay.
But I'm not sure it was more than that.
Okay, warmth is it's just about the one thing that humans want all the time is more than that, right?
I guess it gave me a body sensation which I was not experiencing immediately prior to doing the exercise.
So that's all it's all about. It's about noticing, okay? And just like you noticed, your brain noticed. Lorraine, it's great to have you here, and Robert, Mario as well. It's about, we always want to change our circumstance. We always want to get rid of the things that we don't like. We always want it to be more than it really is. And sometimes it's just about noticing what we have. And when we are noticing what we have, our brain does as well. And if you were to give a hug to somebody that you love, we give a hug and we experience something. Sometimes we don't even take time to appreciate that experience. And if I was to ask you, Mitch, the last time you hugged somebody, when we lived in a world when this was allowed, what is the experience like? Can you remember?
It was wonderful. I remember very well. My grandson came running up to me as I arrived and gave me a big hug.
And what's that experience like?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's one of the best things in the world.
It is indeed. Okay. So, but at the end of the day, physically, it's just one body touching another body, right?
There's a communication going on as well.
Absolutely. But that communication is something over and above that physical touch. So, but that physical touch is extremely important, because would that communication work if you didn't have that touch?
No, it doesn't work as well.
It doesn't work as well. The hug is important.
Because I have a granddaughter who is less tactile and is very pleased to see me, but doesn't rush to do the hug bit. So I can see different grandchildren respond differently. And the hug, I enjoy the hug and I miss the hug when I don't get it.
That's right. So the hug is important. The hug is important. And so even though there's no thunder and lightning going on when we give ourselves that touch, but our body needs that touch, and it has a certain effect. Another thing that we need to learn is to engage in what we're doing. Okay, a lot of the time, just like when you said, you act that experience of getting that hug from your grandchild, you're in the moment, you're engaged with what's going on. Unfortunately, a lot of the time in our lives, we're not actually engaged what's going on. Sometimes after dinner, you could, a few hours later, people forget even what they've eaten, or what happened, this morning at 10 o'clock in the morning. I don't even remember where I was. A lot of the time we don't engage in what we're doing. And so we tend to kind of forget it, and it kind of flows on by, and kind of miss out a lot of times on our own lives. But we also haven't learned and practiced, just like you're juggling or the football, on how to engage with what we're doing. It's not a simple matter, because our mind is created in a way that it's going to pull us all into the past, and it might pull us out into the future, and all sorts of things are going on up in our heads, and it could get in the way, and it could prevent us in engaging on what we're doing. What else do you think might get in the way of engaging?
Could I make a comment that I think is very pertinent to what you said, which is, I think nighttime is worse, because if one is engaged in different activities, whatever they are during the day, one can make more effort to be engaged in them. But at nighttime, one's only engaged in trying to sleep. And if one wakes up and one has difficult thoughts, then one isn't at that moment engaged in anything else other than an unsuccessful endeavor to sleep. So that's quite hard.
That's right. There are hard times. This is not a foolproof formula on what to do. This is about life. And life has its difficult moments. And there's reasons why we have difficult moments. Not everything in our life is hunky-dory, and we have to have an appreciation for that as well. And sometimes things just get in the way. What kind of things get in the way for you? You can put it in the comments on Facebook, or you can tell me on your own, Mitch. What kind of things get in the way sometimes?
Musings about the future.
Right. So getting things that get in the way is that we jump up into our heads and go into a kind of a time machine, and we jump into the future, and all sorts of things that we kind of create about what might happen in the future. Now, some of them might be pleasant things, some of them might be unpleasant things, but it does get in the way of what we're doing right at this moment. Agreed?
Yes.
Yeah, and that could be a problem sometimes for us, because what's happening at this moment is really where we have the control. If we're up in our heads, one thing that is happening up there is that's a bit of an infinite world. There's no end to that world and what our imagination might bring. And so if it's an unpleasant thing, we can have extremely unpleasant journey up there. When we come back into the present moment, everything is more finite. And so that up in our heads experience can be quite worrying, and it can strike off in our minds and bodies that emergency system if it what we're creating up there has a bit of a threat. So exactly. So we have to be careful and come back down into the present moment. Hi, Yael. Great that you've joining us. Thank you. And so it's really important that we learn how to engage in the present moment. Now, one thing that we can do is, as an exercise, just taking kind of what's going on at the moment, is that we have to wash our hands quite a lot at the moment. And as it happens, we all have to become like what we used to see surgeons doing. And it's a special way of washing our hands. And it's a very clean way of getting our hands, sterilized, if you like, against all sorts of biological agents. But we can do it in a couple of ways. We can just get it while we're thinking of all sorts of things, or we could use it as a present moment engaging exercise, just to train the brain even. And that is while we're putting the soap on, we feel the soap, feel our hand. Oh, can you just mute yourself just so that we don't get all sorts of background music? Okay, so we can take note of what we're doing, engaging what we're doing, what we're cleaning this particular finger and then this one and then this hand, and we're putting the soap on and we're doing our thumbs. Now we're doing our wrists. And this might seem a little strange, but basically if we use it as an exercise to train our brain in focusing and engaging on what we're doing at the moment, then our brain will generalize itself and will build that muscle of engagement in what we're doing, and we'll be able to do it in other things. So even when you're listening to somebody and you're talking to somebody, most of the time, we're actually just kind of on waiting time. So we're just waiting until there's a little bit of a pause, and then we're kind of jumping in with our stuff. Very little do we actually actively listen and engage in what we're hearing from the other person. So these are exercises that we can do, and it can actually increase the quality of our experience if we manage to engage in what we're doing. And it settles everything down as well. Committed action. Committed action is about actively doing something. So we're focused on what's in control. We're acknowledging these thoughts and feelings. We're coming back to our body and engaging what we're doing. And that full mindful exercise of all the stuff we've just done there, if we're not going to invest it in something of value for us, something that will take us along the road, then we've kind of, what they call full gas in neutral, where you come from, Mitch. We're not really moving anywhere, we're not really doing anything with it. So we need to have committed action and taking all that vitality that we've just developed and putting it into something where we can actually get motivated and move along and get along that path that we want to go. So at the moment, we are blessed with a lot of extra time and we can't really go anywhere. So we can actually use that to have some committed action in doing things that are important to us. One very, very obvious example is turning up for this workshop. That's committed action. Something was important to you and you actually went out and invested your time and effort, and now you're here and taking action in what you want. Again, if there's a book or something that you want to read, now's the time to take action and do it. If there is something that maybe you wanted to write your memoirs, now's the time to do it because that's committed action. Or anything else, maybe you want to learn something, go on the internet, learn something new. Now you can take some committed action. That's what it's about. It's about taking all the stuff that we've just done and investing it into something of action. It's very, very important. And that balances it up. And a lot of the time we have to take time out and to think about what we want to do. Also, all this hygiene and the distancing that we're doing is taking committed action to look after ourselves and everybody else in our society. Opening up, the O in COVID, opening up is about opening up to these thoughts and feelings that we have, not shutting them down. Open up that experience that we have. And sometimes we just need to sit there and kind of experience that, be willing to have these sometimes quite uncomfortable things happen to us. And it's also about being kind to ourselves. Okay, so sometimes we're very kind to others. Sometimes we're looking out for others a lot of the time. But a lot of the time we forget about ourselves. And being kind to yourself is about, first of all, being aware of the pain and suffering that we're having. We have to be aware that this is unusual times. And in unusual times, we feel a little bit distressed, sometimes a lot, and we have that threat, outside threat, that's kind of lingering around, and our whole routine has been changed. So acknowledge that. That's the first thing. Be aware of what it's doing to our bodies and our minds. That's the first part of self-kindness, but it's not enough. We need to be moved by these things. We need to feel that emotion that's building up in us when we recognize pain, and that's within, whether it's in somebody else or in ourselves. And then we need to develop courage, emotional courage, that we will be able to approach those difficult emotions and thoughts and connect with them. Now, this is the opposite of what most of us have been doing up until now. Most of us have been trying to disconnect from these uncomfortable thoughts and feelings and sensations. Here I'm coming along and saying that you'll be much kinder if you connect to them. So, Mitch, can I just ask you to put your mute on? That would be great. So, this exercise of understanding that we have these uncomfortable experiences, and if we want to have some self-kindness, just open up and be aware of it, be moved and understand the emotional reaction that we have to it, and build that emotional courage in order to connect with it. And that's just basically what we've been practicing up until now. Our V, our values, is really important. This is our motivations. What is important to us in our life? What really matters? Let me ask you, Mitch, because you came up with a fantastic thing. When your grandchild runs and gives you that hug and you feel that whole emotion, that connection with your grandchild, what is it that is important? What really matters about that?
That he's really happy to see me.
Wonderful. And what kind of grandparent do you want to be to your grandchild?
I'd love to be a top-notch grandparent. I'd like to be a loving, helpful,
loving, helpful, and
mentor.
Mentor. Okay, so loving is a value of yours, and being a mentor. A mentor is kind of like in a way, a special type of teacher. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, in a sort of high level type of way.
Right. So that is what's really important about you being a grandfather. And kind of passing that on to your grandchildren. And so that is what, and there's many, many different types of wells, I would call them, that you can be able to take up that idea of being a loving grandfather, a mentoring grandfather. So sometimes you'll be able to do it this way, right? So you'll be able to show your loving grandfather and giving back that hug. But in a time when you cannot do that, how else can you show that loving grandfather in you?
Well, by response to something they've done for you, maybe. I've been receiving cards by email from my different grandchildren, and one was about Paris, and I was able to, respond around what Paris is like and inculcate the idea that she might one day go there, and just evoke ideas in her mind by way of a form of reciprocity.
And you've been doing that through the modern technology that we have.
Right.
Okay, so therefore you're still managing to be that loving, mentoring grandfather, but just in a different way.
Yes,
Wonderful.
That's true.
And that is what we need to connect to, because a lot of people, what happens to us is we get so upset that the way we're used to doing something is now not available to us. But if you just take that time and effort to examine, well, what is the underlying value of what matters here and what's important to me, you most likely be able to continue doing it, but just in a different way, looking for a different well to take the water out of. So that's wonderful. Thank you for that, Mitch. And
Very good.
And also Sharon for joining us on Facebook Live. So that's our values, and our values will be reflected in the committed action that you've just shown that we do to your you do to your grandchild, or that we do to anything else that's important for us. Now, identifying resources, there are external resources and there's internal resources. External resources, it's very important to connect and identify in the event of who can I contact in order to support me? Who can I contact in order to get the help that I need? Do I know the local numbers of the health system that I'm in order to get help if I need it? And is there people that I can contact, maybe friends and family? And that is very important during these days, to identify these external resources. But also we have internal resources that it's very important to identify as well. And one of these internal resources that are extremely powerful and important in times like these is the internal resources of belief and hope. And we know this from ancient traditional studies as well as modern psychological studies, that somebody that has strong belief in and a sense of hope will be able to get through crises such as these in a much easier way. In fact, Dr. Viktor Frankl, who was in Auschwitz during the Holocaust, wrote about this in his book and explained to us and taught us that those who had hope and meaning in their life were the ones that tended to survive more than others. And so at these times, it's important to connect to our beliefs, important to connect to the type of culture and traditions that we come from, and important to connect to that inner resource of hope. Hope meaning that, yeah, this too will pass. This is not something that's going to be till the end of time. And yeah, we're in it for how long we're in it for, and we'll adapt. There's one thing that humans are great at, and that is adapting. We do adapt. You know, when I was in the army, and I went into my first kind of combat enemy territory zone thing, the first few days were extraordinarily scary. I mean, hypervigilant wasn't the word. Every little crack and twig, you kind of wonder what that was and whether you were going to die. But after a while, you kind of got used to it. And in fact, your anxiety went down. And eventually, you kind of had to be extremely careful that you don't get lackadaisical in your new situation. And that can happen with us as well. And that's why it's really important that we keep a routine and we'll keep doing things, because eventually we might, you know, get very used to the fact that we don't have to get up for work, or we don't have to actually do anything. And our bodies and our minds can actually get too familiar with that kind of situation. So connecting to our hope that eventually this will pass and we'll be okay is very powerful. The D, and that's what we'll be finishing with tonight, is disinfect and distance. Of course, we have to keep these hygienic rules. We have to keep washing our hands. Unfortunately, we cannot have that human touch at the moment. That will return one day, and keep our distance physically from each other at the moment in order to keep ourselves safe and healthy for that invisible biological agent that's doing so much damage at the moment in the world today. That kind of takes us to almost the top of the hour. We'll be finishing our workshop for tonight. But if you've got any questions or anything that you want to add, if you're on Facebook Live, you're welcome to put it in the comments, and I'll try and read them and answer them right now. And if you are on Zoom, then you're welcome to open up your microphone and join me, and let's have a conversation. So I'm ready for that. I'll wait a couple more minutes just to wait around and see if there's any comments. Otherwise, we'll be back with the English program on this on next Monday. And but in the meantime, we'll be having all these English interviews almost daily, including the one tonight at 7 p.m. UK time, with the top psychologists, researchers, and authors in the world. Will be coming on my show and, you know, basically discussing about the situation that we're in and what we can do about it. So I'm just going to wait around for another minute or two, unless, Mitch, you have anything to say. How has tonight been for you, Mitch?
No, it's been excellent. Thank you very much indeed for your time and ideas.
Okay, wonderful. And I really appreciate you having that courage to come on to Zoom. It's really great. I appreciate it. And spread the word. Even those who are coming in from Facebook Live, spread the word, share it, and let's hope this won't need to continue too long. But for as long as it's going to be going on, I will be doing Mondays and Wednesdays in English, and Sunday, Tuesday, Thursdays in Hebrew. And be safe, be healthy.
Thank you very much.
And good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.